Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, the podcast designed to be your companion in the journey of self-discovery. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host, and a dedicated therapist. I'm the founder and owner of Self-Care Studio, a private counselling practice. With my clients, in courses that I create, on this podcast, I'm committed to ensuring that you have the support that you need. I created this podcast as a space for you to feel a sense of connection and a reminder that you're not alone in this thing that we call life, this adventure. This podcast is your weekly reminder to trust yourself, live life authentically, and embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore ways to break free from people-pleasing, overthinking, allowing you to claim your time and energy to live life on your terms. You'll be joined by myself as I take you through some episodes, or during the year, I'll have some special self-care experts as guests on my podcast. So if you're ready to step into a life that's truly for you, join me on this journey. Let's navigate the twists and turns of life together, and more importantly, live your life for you. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Let the studio chat begin. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson, I'm the host. Today is it's really exciting for me to say this because I am speaking to Dr. Alexia Mellor. She's in Mexico at the moment, and I haven't had anyone from Mexico before. Let me just share with you a little bit about her first. She is a mystic dog mama to rescue pup Lucky, who is so cute. She's a Reiki master, an aspiring canine nutrition professional, an animal communicator, and she's a real firm believer that dogs are our healers. She is also the host of Mystic Dog Mama podcast, which is born out of the desire to create a beautiful community for us as dog mums to learn so much about our dogs. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the human-dog connection, how we can best nourish our dogs and ourselves in like a mind, body, and soul way. So welcome to the Studio Chat podcast.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I'm so excited. So could you please we'll start from the beginning, and how did this all start off, this Mystic Dog Mama pet communicator? Where did this all start for you?
Well, really out of the blue, to be honest. I am what I like to refer to as a recovering academic. I did my doctorate as an artist, actually using participatory art and design to help people connect to big issues like climate change. And I had recently completed a postdoctoral fellowship that I really wasn't happy with. It was a really kind of toxic environment I was in, and I just didn't enjoy what I was doing. And I was kind of at this sort of crisis point in my own life of really looking at, what is it I really want to be doing? And it wasn't what I had thought. And so it was one of those moments where like you anticipate, you think you've sort of found the direction, you found the thing, you've invested everything into that. And then you're like, no. And I felt a bit like the rug had been pulled from underneath me. And my mom was in Mexico and said to me, why don't you come and visit for a little bit? We can spend some time together. And if you want to, you can travel around and kind of regroup and get a sense of what's what for you. And this was in December of 2019. And so I spent an extended Christmas break, and with the intention of going and traveling around, and then COVID hit. And I was really in this dark place of my life where, like I said, I was sort of debating what was going on. And then you've got the pandemic and all of the energy around that, the kind of heaviness of all of that. And I was probably at one of the lowest points in my life. I felt incredibly numb, and I had this moment of sitting on the beach and seeing just like this beautiful scenery and feeling nothing. And that was a bit of a wake-up call for me of like something's gotta give. And I ended up going to see a local curandero, and curanderos are folk healers, and they're the traditional medicine people in Mexico. So people still go to them for everything, for a sprained ankle to a cold to needing some sort of spiritual support. And he had become highly recommended. And I thought, maybe I just need my chakras unblocking. Maybe that's something that would help. And so I went to him And as I get there, he says to me, so remind me why you're here. And I was like, I really feel like I need my chakras unblocking. And he was like, you don't need your chakras unblocking. You're a bruja, a witch, or somebody who works with energy, a healer. And he said, you need to learn to work with your energy. That's part of your problem and why everything has crashed down around you. And he said, and by the way, pay attention to dogs and cats that cross your path, especially now, because they're healers for you. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, but I'm not in a position in my life to take on a dog. I mean, I'm here on vacation, like what's going on? And it was shortly after that, it was like a day or two later when lockdown was announced. And my mom and I had put our mobile numbers on neighbors' houses just to let them know if they needed any help, that we were here, that sort of thing. And so one of the neighbors took us up on that and knocked on the door and said, is there any chance that you could foster this dog? And hands over little Lucky. And I didn't name him Lucky, that he was already named Lucky by somebody who doesn't speak English, which was really cool. Handed him over. He was a little 2 kilo little pup, little white Chihuahua pup, 12 weeks old. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the little healer. And when he kind of came into my life as my healer, my notion of like what that would look like was, oh my goodness, it's going to be all cuddles and wonderful things like rainbows and unicorns. And what I came to really understand is Lucky is, like all dogs, a sacred mirror. And he has offered me the opportunity to, who has reflected back to me my own shadow work, my own shadow side, and given me the opportunity to look at that, to love it, to integrate it, and to heal it in that way. And then he and I have just been on this journey where he completely has changed my life around. I ended up starting the podcast as a way of creating the community that I had been seeking, to be fully honest, where I had so many issues with him with behavior and health on top of all the stuff that he was bringing up for me. Lucky's a reactive dog. And so if anyone out there has a reactive dog, I'm sure you'll relate to this, where your anxiety is really heightened because it's frightening, it's nerve-wracking, it's embarrassing, there's shame, there's guilt, all of that stuff was coming to the surface as a result of him. So I wanted to create Mystic Dog Mama as a way of creating a platform to bring different people together, including experts, including different community members, to really talk about, to look at what it means to walk the spiritual path with your dog and how we can best nourish them and ourselves along the way.
That's so beautiful. And I'm sure anyone that's clicked onto this, you obviously are a dog lover, or you have a dog yourself, or you've had dogs. And this is really special to me. And I'm getting teary, like, you know how you and I have spoken about before, us like getting teary, because dogs have changed my life. And I never thought in a million years that I could ever have grown the bond, with my 3 girls. 2 have passed, and Tully's here with me, and they are my world and my everything. And it's interesting because you have said that like dogs choose us. So and I do believe that too. So they choose us to show us that mirror.
I think so. I think so. So if you're familiar with the concept of like soul contracts, whether or not you believe in that exact thing, which is the principle of that, is that we choose certain kinds of experiences or lessons that we want to have in this lifetime, and we therefore we choose them for ourselves, and we choose them in tandem with other souls to help support one another. I really do think there's a real grain of truth to that. And for me, I do believe that dogs, I think all animals, but dogs in particular, they hold a really special place in the human relationship because they are the animals that have really entered our homes in a way that other animals haven't. We have co-evolved with them, meaning that our evolution as a species is completely related, interconnected with their evolution as a species, vice versa, right? So we've really informed one another. And I think that is part of what makes our relationship with them so unique. But I do believe that we choose one another in that I feel like Lucky has come into my life at a particular time to help me work through things. But I also feel like I'm in his life to help him as at a soul level work through things that he wants to experience in this lifetime too. So I do think it's a mutual thing. But with that idea of them being a sacred mirror, they're like I said with the healing and what I initially thought healing was just going to be like, oh, the easy journey, right? Like, yay, I'm going to feel so great. But as you know from being a therapist, that it's not like that. Healing means like you got to go into you got to feel the dark, right? It's not about turning it away and ignoring it. It's feeling it, it's acknowledging it, it's loving it and integrating it. And dogs, particularly sensitive dogs, reactive dogs, the kind of challenging dogs, they are there to help guide us through that, to both provoke it and guide us through that experience. And with that mirroring too, there's also that aspect of when something's going on for them, whether that's health-wise or behaviorally, it's often an invitation for us to flip the mirror back to us and look at what's going on with me. Oftentimes, when I talk to animals from the perspective of an animal communicator, and the animal might have a health issue or might have like a physical pain or something like that, it'll turn out that the owner has the exact same thing. So they're taking things on and mirroring things back at so many different levels, which is really a gift if we choose to see it that way.
Wow, that is a gift. I know through my own experience through the years, but watching other people around me, everyone is having a closer relationship with their dog more than it has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs are
Mm-hmm.
part of the family, and sometimes dogs are family to a lot of people.
Definitely.
That very, very special bond. Okay, so that mirror of us is really powerful.
Super powerful. And, I'm a believer that the spiritual journey, and for me, that's about coming to know your true self, who you truly are. That is an impossible journey to take alone. We have blind spots to ourselves. We also need support in the form of various types of community. That could be like going to see a professional like you. That could be you're finding an online group that's supportive. That could be friends and family. It could be a variety of things. But dogs also provide that community for us and that support for us. And they kind of show us, they demonstrate, they model unconditional love. And I think that's one of the big things that we as humans are here to experience is what does unconditional love actually look and feel like
For ourselves and
for
also
us.
relationships. I did hear
Yep.
once when I was going through a really tough time, and it was the first time that I actually don't know who said it to me. I don't think it was a vet. Someone, I think it was, yeah, when I lost Floss, my pug, and I was really upset and so worked up that someone said, do you know that your feelings, you're actually portraying them onto your other dog, Maisie? Like you're actually making her feel more grief because you're like, I didn't realize that my feelings could be transferred onto her
Mm.
and vice versa. So that was, yeah, that was interesting. And then that same person, I wish I remember who it was, said to me, do you know your dogs are here, Barbara, to take away your pain? So they actually
Oh,
absorb
wow.
a lot of your, I'd love to hear your perspective on that. But when you go, I went through a lot of like, the stuff I've been through, it's been a tough, it's been a hard road. It's been a tough, everyone has tough times. I've had a bit
Mhm.
of a tough life and I just kept going and going. And whoever this person was said, oh, your dogs actually absorb your energy. They take away that pain. That's what they're here for. That's their job. And that made me feel really bad because I was like, oh, no, that's mine to own. I don't want my dogs
Mm.
feeling that. I don't want my dogs taking that away. Have you ever heard that before?
I have, and I don't actually know how I feel about that either. I think it's a bit complicated. I think they can take on our emotions, but I think that the biggest gift that they're actually offering us is not to take them away, but to create a safe space for us to actually be with them. Because I don't think with emotions, I don't think it's about getting rid of them. I think that's something that we've often been taught, like just stuff it down, get rid of it. But that's also part of why we're seeing all of the various diseases, where the mental health issues, like all of it is because I don't feel like, particularly from a Western context, that we've necessarily been given the models or the tools or the support to really embrace our emotions, to be with them. And I think dogs are there helping us to do that. I don't think it's necessarily that they're taking our pain away. I think they're creating a safe space. They're holding us through it because our job is really to witness it and to integrate it, not to get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I love it. It makes sense. I'm curious to know with the different breeds and the different like you have different breeds. Then within the breed, you have your own dog's personality. So you can't always say
Mhm.
all pugs act like this or all terriers act like this. But I'm curious to know within our dogs choosing us, do the breeds choose us as well?
Oh, that's a good question. I've not thought about that. I think that there possibly, yeah, because I think there are temperaments that are associated, but I will start by saying that all dogs, like all humans, are individuals.
Yeah.
You'll never meet like two chihuahuas that are exactly the same or what have you. But I do think that breeds have particular social expectations and connotations that are, for example, you look at the kind of demonization of certain breeds and the kind of putting on pedestals of others, that kind of a thing that offers us an opportunity to kind of explore what that is for us. And I do think that certain temperaments, maybe it's more temperaments than particular breeds choose us. And I know like with Lucky, he's a feisty little one. And even he does have those chihuahua tendencies of like, I don't know if anyone else out there has a chihuahua that like you cannot tell a chihuahua what to do and you cannot move a chihuahua when they don't want to move. We were just talking before we started recording about me going on the walk with him today and he's like pancaked out. No, we're done. It's too hot. I'm not walking anymore. You're gonna have to carry me. And there's something about that kind of energy, that kind of personality in my life that I think has been so enriching. Like, not only is it just hilarious because it's coming out of this little like 4 kilo dog, but I think he's shown me things like where I need to stand up for myself, where I need to draw like lines in the sand and be like, no, I'm not doing that. Those kinds of things that I think some breeds possibly embody or represent for us. I do think there's real lessons in there. Like I have a friend who's got a spaniel who's really vocal, and she's noticed that he is particularly vocal at times where she needs to speak up.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're showing us exactly what we need to do. So yeah, I do think Lucky's he's shown me that same sort of thing of like boundaries, baby.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Tully is, I've had two dogs before, but they've always been like 12 to 18 months old. I've never owned a puppy. And Tully's my first puppy, and she likes to play heaps of games. So
Hmm.
she's teaching me I need it, and there's no surprises there because I've been so business focused. Um, and when you work for yourself, it hits different, you don't
Yeah.
really switch off. And she's showing me to have fun and play games. So,
Yeah.
and she's very, when you think of the aesthetics, I've never had a dog. I've had both of my dogs have been very human-like. It's interesting. Both my pug and my Bichon Shih Tzu were very human. They weren't, I know they're dogs, but just very human emotions. And they were so good. And I'd just tell them what to do and they'd do it. And people would be like, okay. With Tully, it's so interesting that her eyes, and all my clients listening to this will be going, yep, her eyes, when you look at her, is very human. Everyone that meets Tully looks at her and obviously says she's cute and beautiful. But when you stare into her eyes, I kid you not, some people go, whoa, she's she's human.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It does freak me
Yeah.
out. I try not to let it freak me out. And I mean it, I'm smiling while I'm saying this, but literally her eyes are very human. And any of the listeners that are listening to this who may not know me, my dog Maisie, Bichon Shih Tzu, she was very white and she had a massive underbite. I was not interested in getting another dog. I was just hurt too much. I'd had a dog in my life for 17 years, massive vet bills, a lot of health conditions. My heart, I couldn't do it. And then just one particular day, everything fell into place. And when I met Tully, she was a puppy, a Shoodle breed, or some people call them Shih Tzus. And she was all brown. Like she had a lot of brown, dark brown all over her face, all over her body. Didn't look anything like Maisie. Now she's 7 months old. Her brown was almost gone. I've seen a photo of her brother. Her brother still has the brown on her eyes. She doesn't. She's almost white and she has an underbite. And I'm like, wow, how has that happened?
No, 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 no. Exactly.
So maybe. So that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think everyone listening to this right now will be thinking of the dogs they've had as kids, dogs they've got now, or dogs that have passed of, oh, what was that dog trying to teach me?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one way to really kind of sit with that is just to observe your dog and see what they're doing and see how you feel in response to it. What does what they're doing evoke for you? This is something that I talk about with reactive dog parents a lot, where they're kind of monitoring when the reactions are happening so they can better understand what the triggers are and then how to deal with it. And that's fantastic. And yes, that's really helpful for helping the dog to overcome stuff. And look at what you're feeling as a result as well. What is their behavior making you feel? And so I started to notice, like for myself, first there was kind of a wave of like fear, especially if we were out on the walk and something was happening, like the wave of fear. And then I noticed that I would have like this cascading wave of guilt and shame. What are people going to think about me? How are they going to judge me? I'd be walking away from the situation and playing it over in my mind, what I should have done differently, what I could have said, all of that kind of stuff. And when I started sitting with where is all of that coming from, that's when some of the key insights started to come. So in reality, it had nothing to do about Lucky. And he wasn't holding on to the situation, right? As soon as that's the gift of dogs too. They're so present. Like once it was done, it was done. He's happy walking along and I'm going and muttering into my head, like in my mind, like, oh my God, blah, 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 I should have done this. Blah, blah, blah. But sort of the gift of that is to just to see what's going, just to witness it without judgment, and then look at where is that coming from? What are the stories that I'm telling myself about what having a dog should look like, how my dog should behave, how I should be as a dog owner, right? And question whether or not those stories are actually helpful.
Mm. Yes, those stories. Wow. Yeah. Okay. One of the most exciting things I want to talk to you about because it fascinates me is animal communication, being an
Mhm.
animal communicator. Um, and this is I've actually forgotten about this part. Wow, I'm just going to share something with you. Hope that's okay. I just forgot.
Yeah.
I literally forgot about it. I never was my whole being is very spiritual. And I call myself BS saying I was never into it, but that's a lie. I just was never open to it. I've always been into this. So when my pug was starting to get very sick, and she would sit on my bed in the middle of the night and just bark and bark and bark, like she was barking at something, or she had, trouble breathing as well. And I was like, I was searching for answers. How can I help her? Like, obviously, I had the vet. I even bought like a steamer to help her lung, like a proper, when humans can't breathe. And so I got
Mhm.
her all the gear and made sure she was very comfortable and very warm. For some reason, something told me to see if there's someone available that could talk to her. I don't know how I knew what to do. And I actually found someone local. This is years ago now. And I took my pug. I remember carrying her in a suburb called Wollongong, and I was carrying her in the middle of the city. And people were, because this dog would make traffic stop. This dog would make everyone like, oh my, I'd hear across the road, because this was before pugs became trendy. I'd hear, oh my God, it's a pug. Literally, whenever Floss and I would go out in public, it was like the Floss show. Cars would stop, kids would run out, can I protect your pug? And then little kids would be like, oh, and I have actually forgotten about this. Like it literally was the Floss show, right? And I was walking in the main street in the city and everyone was just going nuts. And I remember looking at Floss laughing, going, you got it, Floss, And even someone wound down their window and said, oh my God, your dog's cute. And I was like, thanks. When I saw this lady and Floss sat on my lap and the lady was taking notes. And I remember it was a really hot day and there was a fan blowing. I just can't believe I've forgotten about this. There's a fan blowing. And I was thinking, this lady's full of shit. I don't know how she's going to be able to talk to my dog. What am I doing here? This is nuts. But that's how desperate I was to try and communicate. I wanted to know how I could help her. And this lady, the first thing the lady says is, "Oh, okay, Floss." And she was laughing and she said, "Oh, Floss wants you to turn the fan on her because she's really hot. Like, can you actually like make sure the fan's blowing on her?" And I was like, that is such a Floss thing to say. Like, can you put the fan on me? Because I'm like really hot. And I burst into tears and I laughed at the same time. And the experience was the first time of animal communicator experience. And I walked away going, what on earth what happened here? And then the beauty about that is a dear friend in New Zealand, when Floss did pass, she didn't know I'd been to that communicator. And she sent me a voucher. And it's one of the best gifts if you're spiritually minded and you do know, like, obviously you're an animal communicator. If you get a voucher for someone when their dog passes, and I could communicate with Floss. And I was like, what? Again, I was not really open-minded to it. And this lady got on Zoom and was telling me everything about Floss. And there's no way that she could have known how she passed, everything. And Floss was talking to me, and it was so, for me, so therapeutic.
Yeah.
The animal communicator. So I want to say thank you, because for dog mums like me who, I'm sure we all get told we have the gifts and we can talk to our dogs, but thank you, because we need people like you. It has given me so much joy and pain, but like good and bad, to be able to help my girls, to be able to make sure that they're okay. And even when they go to the other side with both of my dogs, it was for Floss, it was very hard, but for Maisie, I was more open to communicate with her.
Yeah.
And I cannot, even if you're listening to this going, this is whatever, if you've been through it, like I was definitely this is a joke. And for both of my dogs, Maisie was running through long grass, and then the lady described this butterfly, and I kid you not, I was looking at my sliding doors, big glass sliding doors, and there were butterflies all around my sliding doors and we both cry, sliding doors with the colors that the lady was saying. And I actually swore at her jokingly, but was like, nah, this is messed up. Like, how on earth does this stuff happen? So I know my dogs have given me this spiritual component, the understanding. When I help my clients and I walk my clients through grief, whether it's a person or an animal, my girls have taught me the continuation of the relationship. And I talk to my girls every single day. And so this is the fact that you're an animal communicator. How amazing are you? Like, yeah, it's just a gift. And you help people like me to be able to make sure our dogs are okay, whether they're here or whether they're somewhere else.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I accept that. But I also want to mirror back that, to your point, we actually all are communicating with our animals all the time. This isn't that I'm special or any other animal communicator is special. It's just that we've chosen to practice a little bit. And to give you a kind of indication of how you might already be connecting with your animals. Like sometimes you just get the sense that maybe we should go for a walk now. Or, let me check the water bowl. Or I guess maybe it's time for dinner, that kind of a thing. You just get this sense and then you go and you act upon it. Oftentimes that is your dog sending you messages, and they're not sitting there. Like, I think telepathy can be sometimes misconstrued. They're not sitting there like with a crystal ball and sending you like little messages in the forms of words. I think so. Yes, I hear things. I hear words at times, but I also I get pictures in my head. I'll just start thinking about something. And that is a similar thing to, like, have you had that experience where you'll be thinking of a friend and then they call you or message you?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of connection that's going on between us and our animals. And we're doing it all the time. The reason it's sometimes different and maybe a little bit more difficult to connect with our own pets is because we dismiss all of those little nudges as like, oh, I must be making it up. Or of course, well, they're my dog. I would know that kind of a thing. So we don't open up to the possibility necessarily that we're already doing it, but we are. And my first workshop that I did with animal communication, it was a really interesting experience because it was a group workshop. It was online. So the dog wasn't around me. And we just started with like, we hit the road running. It was like, okay, I'm not going to give you too much instruction on what to do. We'll do a little breathing exercise to calm you down, because that's the thing, is getting out of your thinking mind and stop judging what's coming up. And the instruction was, write down anything and everything you are hearing, seeing, feeling, thinking, whatever is kind of coming into your awareness, write it down and don't judge it. Because your tendency will be like, that's not true, made that up, that was me. You just write it down. Mm-hmm. And then we were given a photograph of the dog. And in the group, the dog mom was present. So she was there. She was going to speak at the end to kind of validate or dismiss like things, to give us some feedback. And she was absolutely phenomenal, because the level of detail she went into was so helpful for all of us. But I had the experience of, I was like, there's no way I can do this. I can't do this. And the first thing that I heard, and it was in my own voice. So some people think like you hear a different type of voice. Some people do. I heard my own voice as if I were thinking, but it just popped into my head. I heard the word spaghetti, and I was like, oh my God, here we go. I can't do this. Like, what on earth? Well, exactly. I was like, am I fantasizing about what's in the fridge? But I wrote it down, and, like other things were coming up, and I saw things in my mind. I was like, we're just going to write it down. This is totally wrong. I can't do this, but I just noted it all down. And then we each had to go around and just say what had come up. And she wasn't giving feedback. There was no discussion of it. It was just, you say what you got. Yeah. Move on to the next person. Yeah. And then she gave feedback. And it was interesting to see. We were a group of I think we're about 20 or something like that. So I was one of the first to go, and I said, and I prefaced it. I was like, okay, this is probably wrong, but I heard the word spaghetti, and they went through the list. And then somebody else said, I saw a long noodle-like thing. And somebody else said, I saw a long treat. Then we get to, so none of us have done this before. And I'm saying this to validate that we can all do it, right? None of us have done this before. We then get to the dog's mom, and she said, she went through each of ours, and she got to me, and she said the spaghetti thing. They were she and her dog were getting prepared to go and visit near where her parents live, and her dad, so that the mom's dad, always gives the dog buttered spaghetti as a treat. And she, as the dog mom, is really unhappy about that. She keeps telling her dad, stop giving her spaghetti, but it's the dog's favorite treat. And she has been telling the dog at this point that they're getting ready to go see grandpa. And so she was like, of course the dog would be talking about spaghetti. And for me, that was like the perfect example, because it was something that had nothing in my mind, nothing to do with dogs. I heard it in my own voice. So I was like, oh, I've totally made this up. It also was around dinner time. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just, all of those things. Maybe I'm just hungry. It was so dismissible for me. And it was the one thing that she felt really validated, that I and the other people who picked up on similar things had really connected to her, because it was so specific to her dog. So the point being that all you have to do is just start practicing, like set the intention of connecting with your animal and just see what starts to come up and make a note of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. The only way I've communicated on that level with my dog, and this may seem weird for people, but we're just going to go with it. Especially with Maisie, I do it with Tully, and she allows me to do it. Floss wouldn't want me to do it, but and I said it to someone, they're like, that's her third eye. I don't know if dogs have third eyes, but in between their eyes, without realizing, I would always kiss Maisie there, and I would hold it for ages. And sometimes it'd be a minute or two, and I'll just kiss her there, and we'll just have a moment. And I think that's how we were communicating. And now I'm starting to do it with Tully, and she'll just sit there and she'll allow me to kiss her right there, and I'll just leave it for ages. And I feel something. I don't know what that something is, but I'm not doing it to be like, oh, I'm spiritual or I want to connect with my dog. It was just where I used to kiss Maisie, and now I've started to do it with Tully, just in that middle part of
Mhm.
their face.
Yeah. And that feels really good to them. That's a spot that a lot of dogs like to be stroked. It's a very calming spot. And even for us, that point kind of it's a little bit lower than our third eye, but more towards like where our eyebrows are, like where when you if you kind of press on your eye socket, you can feel like where that bone is of your eye socket.
Oh, yeah.
That that's an acupressure point. And like if you've had a headache and you kind of pinch the bridge of your nose, that kind of area, we often tend to do that sort of naturally. We'll pinch there to help relieve the headache. It's a really sensitive area on both us and the dogs. So they love it. And you are connecting to her in that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How cool is that? Well, we're going to start practicing that.
Yeah.
I tell
There
you.
you go.
Yeah, yeah. And do they communicate in images as well, or is it just words?
Yeah. No, they communicate in a variety of things. They could even send you physical sensations. So you could feel like pain, you could feel hot or cold, you could taste something. And a lot of it is dependent upon these are what we call our clair senses. They're like clairvoyant, clairaudient, that kind of a thing. And that's like your extrasensory versions of your five physical senses that you've got. We have them all as individuals, but we tend to be stronger in some more than others. And so it's been my experience, particularly with kind of connecting with other animal communicators, that you tend to receive information because that's all that's being transmitted through the energy is information. You receive the information typically with the senses that you're strongest with your kind of like what you sort of gravitate towards. So for me, I tend to see, hear, and I'm more clear cognizant. I'll just have a knowing. Like that when you just sort of know something, but you don't know why you know it, that kind of a thing. I'll get that kind of feeling. And it's not a physical feeling for me. It's just that feeling of knowing. So it'll be dependent. It's not so much dependent on the dog and what they're sending. It's more dependent on you and what are your strengths for receiving it, in my experience. But other people could feel differently about that.
Okay. And you can always connect as an animal communicator that you're trained and practiced in. You can communicate with animals here and ones that have passed.
Yep. Yep. In fact, in this very same workshop, so keep in mind, it's my very first experience of that. We connected with three different animals and we weren't told anything about them. And one of them had passed. And some people can sense that the animal has passed over. Some people don't sense it. Some of it's dependent upon the animal itself. For me, I've started to notice, we were talking previously when we've chatted about kind of developing a sort of symbology of sorts, where I'm starting to recognize the more and more I do it that there's a common theme, particularly with dogs or animals that have passed over, that they will send me almost the same sort of visual or kind of like feeling. I'll kind of see the same sort of thing. But one of the things that happened for me when I looked at the image of this dog, so I was not told that the dog had passed over. I could obviously tell from the photograph that the dog was older. But what happened for me was that the dog's eyes and nose in the photograph appeared to kind of come forward towards me. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I don't know why it made me feel this. So again, that kind of claircognizance, I just had a knowing. I felt the dog is deceased. So I wrote that down. And then I started to see the dog was showing me running around and that kind of stuff. But that seemed, there were sort of in the visuals that the dog was showing me, it was sort of incongruent with being an older dog. And I was like, okay, I kind of feel like she's continuing to show me that she's passed. Like now she's able to do these things that she couldn't do in her older physical body. And I noticed that there was kind of a theme around this. And then she did show me where like certain things were painful in her body. And then the dog mom confirmed, yes, she had passed, and she'd previously been a dog that really loved to run around and stuff, but as she got older, had real issues with her hind area, and so wasn't able to walk and often had to be carried. And I felt like this was the dog's way of communicating, like that she was okay. Here's a little Lucky. You come to say hi?
Got Lucky turning up. Hi, Lucky.
Hey, Bobo.
Hi, Lucky. I can see.
I'll tilt it.
Oh, hello, Lucky. I'm trying to get. No, he's
Lucky,
looking
look,
at Mum.
Lucky, look here. Who's that? It's Barbara.
Hi. He. Oh, So sweet.
He is so cute, and he knows it too.
I love his ears. Sorry,
His
anyone.
ears,
Sorry,
his
anyone.
ears are just classic.
Yeah, sorry, anyone listening to this because you can't see what I'm literally looking at. I'm looking at Lucky. He's totally blocking me out because he's like, whatever. And he's all looking at Mum. And so she's like giving him a good scratch. And then when she stops, he like gets his paw and he's like, no, no, I want more. It's all about me, Mum.
Exactly. I do a lot of consent testing with him because he can be touch sensitive. He doesn't always like to be scratched. So I always let him tell me. And we just keep going on until he's like, we're done.
He is loving it right now. That's the beauty about I love seeing their little personalities. Like, but he's so sweet. Oh, I just wish I could give
He
him a
is so,
cuddle.
I
Oh,
know. He is so cute. He is so cute. You are
oh,
adorable, Bubs.
so adorable. So yeah, dogs are our healers. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the mirrors of us. They help us heal, which I really
Mm-hmm.
believe in that. And then if we take it a step further, you like you're a canine nutrition professional as well. So you also
Mm-hmm.
help the nutritional side of things and
Mm-hmm.
help us as humans and dogs best nourish our mind, body, and soul. Can you, yeah,
Yeah.
please, because this is
Yeah.
very interested in. I know other people are. Especially now with the confusing marketing BS of dog food and raw and fresh, and
Mm-hmm.
please help us.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into it because when like I said, when I first got Lucky, when he first came into my life, I was just fostering him. So I was feeding him the food that his owner was giving him, which was a kibble. And I always sort of questioned the idea of kibble because I was like, we're told as humans to stay away from ultra processed foods, that we should be eating whole, fresh foods, that if we want to be preventing disease and all that, that we really should concentrate on that, make that the majority of your diet. So I kind of was wondering why on earth we were giving dogs, most dogs are fed, who are fed kibble, are fed like the same kind of kibble every day for their whole lives.
Mhm.
So it was like, well, why are we giving them ultra processed foods as the only food that they're ever eating? And we're told don't give them human food. And I was like, why is there this sort of like separation between food and human food? Like everything is just food. And I started researching ways to improve his bowl through adding fresh food toppers. That's where I started with it because I didn't, and I imagine like a lot of people, in fact, most people, you might be curious about making your dog's food, but you're probably like, where do I even start? I don't want to give my dog like imbalanced foods. I don't want to make them sick, all of that. And I totally get that. And that is a big part of why I started down the route professionally because at 1 year of age, I know he's given me a full-on bath, right?
He is like taking you to the day spa. He's like licking you.
I love to think that it's just me, but it's because I put coconut oil on it so as a moisturizer, and he's like, I love it. You're just so yummy, mom. But at 1 year of age, generally is when you start to transition a dog from puppy formulations onto adult foods. And right as I did that, I continued Lucky on the same brand of kibble, but the adult version. And this particular adult version had it was a grain free, and the primary protein was chickpeas. At the time, I didn't know that chickpeas are not a species appropriate food for a carnivore. But of course, that kind of makes sense when we think carnivores,
Yeah.
their whole role is to eat meat, and here I am feeding a legume. But that's what a lot of the grain-free foods use in order to bump up the protein, but also kibble needs a high amount of carbohydrate in order to keep the form that it's in, to be in the pellet. So that's part of why like pea proteins, lentils, legumes, etc., are kind of added in there because whilst those aren't necessarily carbohydrates, they have that kind of consistency that they can hold the kibble together. Well, when I put him on that food, it was like just a watershed of problems started happening with him. He had absolutely severe gastrointestinal problems. I mean, vomiting, diarrhea like I had never seen before. He was so sick. And I tried him on different kibbles. And I think in part he had developed an aversion because he was like, this stuff makes me sick. I don't want to eat any of it. And he was just eating the fresh food toppers that I was putting on. So like chicken and egg. I was complementing with proteins mostly. And eventually he still was not like getting better. And he was then starting to refuse to eat altogether. And I talked to my vet about it. And she said, I think you're going to have to start making his food. I don't know a lot about nutrition. And this is the thing is vets don't receive a lot of nutritional training in schools. And she was like, I'm not your best bet for information. You're going to have to kind of figure this out on your own. And so I then went down the internet rabbit hole of canine nutrition and was like, oh my God, am I overwhelmed by all the conflicting advice, like you alluded to, not even knowing where to start.
Yeah.
To add to it, at the time, we thought that Lucky was having some kidney issues as well. So I had other considerations to take into account and just didn't know where to start. But because I felt like what ended up happening was I was repurposing my research hat from doing my doctorate and I turned into like, how do I research all this stuff for Lucky?
Yeah.
And I just really did go down like the rabbit hole of it all. And to the point where I decided that I wanted to learn how to do it professionally so that I could support Lucky at various points in his journey. But also, I wanted to be able to provide other pet parents with the support and the information that I wished I'd had going through all of this because you'll find a lot of nutritionists, canine nutritionists. It is a growing kind of field as people are recognizing the health benefits of fresh food. So I am a fresh food advocate. Some people are more raw or what have you. I'm an advocate for whatever kind of fresh food suits your dog. I do prefer raw for most dogs, but raw doesn't work for every dog. In fact, Lucky doesn't always like raw. So he vacillates between a gently cooked diet and a raw diet. So we look at the dog in front of us and we feed the dog in front of us. Remember, they're individuals. So we're going to work with them as individuals. But I wanted to be able to offer something that was more than just here's a recipe because I didn't want to repeat that same thing of just feeding the dog the same thing day in and day out for the rest of their lives. But I wanted to learn how nutrition worked, how our nutritionists thinking about what a dog needs to eat and putting the pieces together, and then be able to help support pet parents both with therapeutic ways of dealing with food. So dogs that have various issues like skin issues or kidney disease or cancer or a variety of different things, help them to use diet to support that.
Yeah.
But then also to educate the sort of general public who with dogs who want to learn how to do this, like how do you start to think about this so it becomes demystified and it becomes something that you understand that if you are cooking for yourself, you can cook for your dog. It's that easy. You just need to know what it is they need. What I like to refer to as like their food pyramid, right? What are the main components that they need? And then make sure that you're providing them with that in a rotation. So they're getting exposed to a variety of different proteins and different types of fats and different types of vitamins and minerals over the course of a week. And with fresh food, it's much more what we call bioavailable. So that means that the body can access those nutrients and make use of them a lot easier. So that's my big focus is fresh bioavailable foods that are specific to the dog in front of you.
So interesting because what I'm hearing is obviously I'm a certified nutritionist. And so that's all the stuff that I've learned as a human, like for good gut microbiome, you have a range of fruit, veggies, different colors and everything. Because the more variety you have, the better your health is going to be in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been drummed into me from somewhere that the reason why dogs don't eat human food is because dogs don't have a human body. We're actually two different species. Human body, dog body. Stop feeding your dog human food because they're dogs.
Yes and no. So they are like modified wolves. When you're looking at their kind of anatomy and morphology, we want to feed them actually more like we feed a wolf. However, when you also look at, they're a mammal. So they have a lot of the same kind of characteristics to us. One of the big differences between dogs and humans in terms of how they are able to process foods is when you look at their jaws, they've got in the back of their teeth, those sort of ridged teeth, those big ridged teeth. They're called carnassial teeth, and they're designed to crunch, rip, tear, break down bone primarily. You'll see a dog take a bone, like take big pieces of meat and push it to the back of their mouth to kind of shred at that, pull it apart. We don't have those teeth. But so that gives you an indication of one of the things that they should be eating. They should be eating raw meaty bones. Never, ever, ever cooked bones. Cooked bones splinter and can cause obstruction, but raw meaty bones, all about it. They love it. That's what they are here for, is to eat raw meaty bones as a carnivore. They also have jaws that are hinged that go up and down. When you look at our jaws, we have flat molars in the back and our jaws are able to go side to side. That's an indicator that we're able to break down plant matter like a ruminant would. When you watch like cows or any other ruminant, any other plant eating animal, they take the plant in and they move their jaws back and forth side to side to help break down the plant matter. Dogs can't do that. They also don't have the enzyme in their saliva, which is called amylase, and that's the enzyme that helps us to break down starches, to help start breaking down plant matter, because plant matter is hard to break down even for us. That's why we have a digestive tract that starts in our mouth with those enzymes to help break it down, because it starts to break down further and further as it goes through. Dogs don't have that. So that's an indicator that they shouldn't be eating as much plant matter as we do. But dogs are facultative carnivores. And like I mentioned earlier, they have co-evolved with us. So they evolved around human campfires, around human camps, eating scraps. So they have developed the propensity to be able to digest some amounts of plant matter, but not in the same volume that we do. So that's one of the changes. But also to your point of like them being different to humans, there's so many similarities as well, that when you start to look at scientific studies, that a lot of about human health, a lot of them were conducted on dogs. And the reason they were conducted on dogs is because they have similar systems to us. So you can also kind of work backwards when you're looking at that kind of correlation, that if a human study, this is what we do in the nutrition space, where there are not the same amount of studies that are done for canine nutrition as there are for human nutrition, primarily due to funding. So what you can do is work backwards and look at if they are indicating something for the human and it was tested on the dog, then you know it's the same for the dog.
Mm. Wow, how has this changed your life?
Dramatically.
Yeah.
Dramatically. I mean, I think, again, that reflection of that I have, the kind of focus I've put for the podcast of nourishing our dogs and ourselves, mind, body, and soul. It's that merging. It's where when you start to look at your dog's diet and your dog's health from that kind of perspective, again, the mirror, it asks you to do the same for yourself. And one of the things that I wanted to challenge in the dog community, especially the fresh and raw feeding communities, is that so many people will take pictures of these beautiful bowls that they've put together for their dogs with all of these like fancy ingredients and stuff. And they will hashtag it, "My dog eats better than I do." And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we should be eating equally as well as our dogs, and that health is something that we should be concerned about, not just for them, but for us as well. And they can teach us about that. And the more that you learn about feeding your dog, the more you learn about feeding yourself.
Mm. Yes, yes. Tully and we're about to go down that road, aren't we?
Yes, it's exciting. Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. So with my own journey with Tully, and I've had two dogs that in their later life were very ill. Very, very sick girls. I feel I'm going to own something here. Until I had Tully, I never read a packet of a dog's food. I never read the ingredients. Only a few years ago, I've learned that through myself, through being a nutritionist. But with Tully, I was like, okay, I'm going to really watch what goes into her. And every dog treat bone that I looked at the pet shop, that I went to a boutique pet shop and I look online, if you scroll into the ingredients, within the first 3 ingredients or 4 ingredients, it says sugar. And I was so mortified. And I said to Floss and Maisie, "Oh my God, I am so sorry that I fed you that." And then when I start looking at the ingredients, so with my journey with Tully is she came from a breeder and they just put her on some dry food and some wet food that she still eats now. But I'm getting to the point where I was like, her breed does have a lot of skin issues and a lot of yeasty stuff. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I cut the grains out. And then I was like, yeah, but then I'm cutting something out and I don't really know. And even though I'm a nutritionist, I know it, like I'm so lost. And even at the vets, you listen to what they've got to say. And I'm like, well, now I'm starting to debate that. Okay, maybe not. And that's how I found you. And we had this discussion. I was like, I want to do the best by Tully, but at the same time, I'm going through my own personal health journey to get back into taking care of myself and really cleaning up my food. So we're both,
Mhm.
Tully and I are both on this journey together, and we're going to be working with you. And you're
Mhm.
going to be learning how to really take care of Tully. And I've never, and I know this is I feel kind of bad saying this too for my other dogs. I've never given my dogs bones, like the meaty bones, because I've got so much fear, especially with the
Mhm.
pug. And then my dogs are quite little, not as little as Lucky, but I have a big fear of bones with my dogs. And I
Yeah.
feel, and that's my own fear. It's not their fear, but I have seen a dog choke before. My
Mhm.
ex-partner's dog was in our kitchen and it choked, and once you see something like that, so that's mine. But learning to work with you, I can't wait the day that Tully actually gets to be a dog and has
Mm.
a meaty bone. She's like, thank God, Mum. But I want to do the best for her. And then I'm going to be learning stuff too. So I'm kind of happy that we can announce it on here because
Yeah.
to be able to document and take, Tully on the journey of going from puppy to, I mean, she's 7 months old now, puppy to adulthood, and you know, and that kind of breed has patella stuff, TPLO stuff, any leg ligaments. I'm just going through my dog's health issues. Maisie was very sick with Cushing's disease, and then she had pancreatitis, and a lot of that was from grief. When my other dog left, Maisie got very, very ill, very sick, and Floss had congestive heart failure, something to do with her. Wow, I've got it written down. I should have looked at it. Something to do with her collapsing trachea, like an airway. She had three things. It was early
Mhm.
congestive heart failure, something to do with her breathing pipe. I'm sorry, Floss. There was another thing. And now looking back, her hair was very thin on her back. I reckon she had a bit of Cushing's sneaked in there too, right at the end. Oh, and Maisie had diabetes right at the end too. But that was the end. So, but when you've had a dog, both of them lived till Maisie just hit 12, Floss was 12 and a half. And those girls came over from New Zealand with me. So they did a big trip from New Zealand to Australia and had to live in a different climate and stuff. I know at the beginning they were like, oh my God, Mum, it's hot here. I know that they were like, what are we doing here? But bless them. Um, so that's what I kind of want to prevent and learn and really work with Tully's breed. And I'm very aware of the conditions, but also she's a therapy dog. So she sits with a lot of, she's a very human dog. When we go for a walking, she'll look at a dog, but she's jumping all over the humans rather than the dog. Everyone's like, oh my God, she's so sweet. How come she's not interested in dogs? And I'm like, because she's a therapy dog and she just loves people, but she absorbs that energy too, just like me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So with food, it makes sense that I can help her little body when everyone's touching her, when clients come in and they touch her, or even on Zoom, and she's just sitting behind me now, she's absorbing all this energy.
Of course she is. Yeah. And there are also things that you can do, like Reiki, for example, to help clear her energy, that sort of a thing, and make that part of a regular practice and energetic. So that's where I talk about nourishing, like the mind, body, and soul. It's taking all of those things together. But I just wanted to pick up on something that you said, because I think a lot of listeners will also feel like this. And I want to kind of alleviate any kind of guilt around feeding your dogs. We do the best we can with what we know at the time. And when we learn more, we do better. So it's not about judging ourselves and thinking I should have done something different or what have you. Again, I think our dogs come in for very particular parts of our journey, and that's part of their journey too. I also feel like there's a tendency to put the blame on ourselves as individuals, but we actually see this happening quite a bit now, where a lot of the holistic vets that are really upset about what's going on with dogs' health and why do we see such high rates of cancer? Why are dogs having even higher rates of things like diabetes, for example, than we are? And a big part of it is because of the food we're feeding. But where is the accountability for the companies that are making that food? Kibble, like I said, is really high in carbohydrates. A lot of them are like 40 to 60% carbohydrates to an animal that is a carnivore. Like that's part of what creates things like obesity. The majority of the health, I would say the top health problems that people go into the vet for the most often with can be supported by diet. So things like skin conditions, diet can play a huge role in that. Gastrointestinal stuff, you alluded to the microbiome, absolutely. Diet is a huge part of that. When we start to kind of step back and see what we have control over as pet parents, that's where we can empower ourselves. And even if that's just adding some fresh food to your dog's kibble, because that's what you can manage to do for whatever reason right now, that is fantastic. Adding even just a little bit of fresh food to your dog's diet makes a huge impact in their health. So definitely love yourself and accept yourself for where you are on your journey, and that you're doing the best that you can for your dog. And your dog is not holding anything against you. They love you exactly as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it just gets confusing too, especially when you do have a dog that has an illness like Cushing's. And I had to go down there, and she was very, very sick. And the drug that you put on a dog for Cushing's is very strong, and they have to be on it for the rest of their life. And it's heaps of blood tests. So with that disease, I had to do my own research, and it was really interesting because you have to treat the dog. And I had such a good vet, but the two of us would always be like, she's not presenting any physical symptoms here, but her blood work was absolutely shocking. So it's like we had to treat the dog, not the disease.
That's
And
right.
and she did have a lot of medication and stuff, but then I know she wouldn't have had the time she had with me, because so many people, especially it's Vetoryl, or trilostane is the drug that people use for Cushing's disease for dogs. And a lot of people, because I remember it took her a good few weeks. She was cowering in the corner of the bathroom shaking because the drug was really messing her around. But once she got used to it, she was okay. But she wasn't moving. She just lay on the floor and wouldn't move. So the fact that once I got over that, yes, I mean, it's not the best thing, but so many people in any of the Cushing's groups on Facebook or anything, I was like worldwide reading. I was just trying to get any information I could to make the best decision for her. A lot of people were just dead against it due to the cost, but due to the side effects. And I think the best thing is get all the information and make the best decision. And I don't like that my little girl had to have so many tablets and stuff at the, her last 18 months of that life. But I know for her, it was the best way. It gave her that quality of life. So it's, yes, work with your vet, but also do your own research, but also don't be afraid to go the holistic way as well, which I think is so cool that that's coming out more and more. And there's no right or wrong way. Like you said, I think that's beautiful that you do the best, because everyone's so adamant of shaming people. And it's interesting that any vet that I've been to, and they are remarkable at their jobs, and I love them, and thank you. I don't think if any vets are listening to this, but they're so against raw. Like if you ever try and have personally, this is only me, if I've had to try and have a conversation with a vet in New Zealand or in Australia in the 17 years I've had a dog to talk about nutrition or to talk about anything, they kind of shut you down and go, read the back of the packet, measure, and just give them this kibble. That's all you do. Like they shut me down. Oh, what about raw food? Oh, no. It's so full of bacteria. No. And then you carry on. So that was just my experience. So,
Yeah. I think that's a lot of people's experience, to be honest. And if for people who are curious, there is an organization called Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and it's a group of international vets that are pro raw feeding. There are some in Australia as well. And they're a great resource for being able to talk to your vet. I believe they've got some kind of pamphlets that you can download about raw feeding and talking to your vet and how to actually address some of those common misconceptions that are used to justify feeding the bag of kibble. The big thing that gets lobbied around is about, like you're saying, the bacteria, like, oh, there's salmonella and everything. There have been more deaths caused by salmonella in kibble. Salmonella exists in kibble, people. It's not just fresh food.
Yeah.
Then there have been no deaths reported from raw food. And part of it is if you are using normal food safety precautions like you would for yourself, where
Yeah.
you're washing your hands before and after handling raw food, you're washing the surfaces that you've chopped things on, you're washing your dog's bowl in hot soapy water, you don't have a problem. There's nothing, the same food you'd be feeding yourself. The issue with bags of kibble is a lot of people will buy like the big bags, they're open. As soon as they're open, they're exposed to air, which means that the fats are oxidizing. You're putting your hands in. You're not washing your hands after you touch the kibble most of the time. You might do a quick like wipe off on your jeans or whatever, but you're not washing your hands. And you're probably, because you're in the kitchen, you're probably picking up a snack for yourself and then eating it. That's how the salmonella gets passed. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of times it's young kids, it's toddlers who are going to feed the dog or they're putting their hands in the kibble. And then what do toddlers do? Stick their hands in their mouths. That's where a lot of the issues have come from. So if you're interested in learning more about that kind of stuff, there's tons of research to show and resources to learn more about the kind of realities around raw feeding versus kibble. And like I said, the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society does have information for public use, like things that are downloadable for you to be able to talk to your vet about it.
So if we just Google that, that'll be easy. Okay, cool. I'll put that in the show notes. Wow, we've really touched on a lot of things. It's just been kind of, what a great episode if you have a dog, or you're going to get a dog, or just something that comes, it's very dear and close to my heart, but it's also very in line with what I do as a therapist, the mind-body connection. As a therapist, I have a therapy dog. In my own personal life, my dogs are very special to me. So, and I can't wait for us to begin the journey with Tully and myself, and be almost like I'm going to create within my business a whole story about Tully going through this and about the care for her and how that can help other people. Because obviously if I'm going to be my best self, I can give my best self to clients. If Tully's going to be her best self, she can give her best self out into the world.
100%. I am so grateful that you've had Lucky and me on to have this conversation. And I'm also excited, I hope it's okay to say, that you're going to be coming on the Mystic Dog Mama podcast as well to talk about your story. So that will be really exciting to have you over there as well.
I'm very excited. And it's nice to it's winter here and I'm feeling like I've never been to Mexico, but I'm just kind of getting the vibes off you when I'm talking to you, that the fact that I talked to you today, I've been in Mexico today.
There you go. There you go. And the fact that I'm kind of like hoping that there's some cooler air coming from your part of the world, just 'cause it's getting hot.
I'll bring it over to you. It's just been such a joy, a real joy. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you, Lucky. Thank you so much. That lady talks funny.
There you go. He lifted.
He's living his best life.
He's got his sock treat. This is his favorite thing where I hide. He stole a bunch of my socks. So little stinker, and then like bit holes in them. I was like, all right, well, they're yours now, dude. And I use them to hide treats in. He absolutely loves it. So again, like kind of supporting the dog that he is, he's as a terrier mix, a Chihuahua terrier mix, he likes to dig. So I knot a treat in his little sock and he's got to like pull it apart and he loves it. But there's socks everywhere. And he's got one now.
That's what he's got. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on here. This is so fun to be a guest on the podcast as well, because it's a different perspective being on the other side of the mic.
It is, isn't it? It's a bit weird. I take that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio, or head over to my website, selfcarebybarbarathompson.com.au. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.